हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम बैक टू द लाइव सेशन। तो अब हम देखेंगे एनसीईआरटी क्लास 11 का इकोनॉमिक्स, जिसमें आज हम देखेंगे चैप्टर 8 जो कि है इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर। तो शुरू करते हैं हमारा आज का चैप्टर। मैनी थिंग्स वी नीड कैन वेट, द चाइल्ड कैनॉट, टू हिम वी कैनॉट से टुमारो, हिज नेम इज टुडे। Gabriela Mistral, Chilean poet. So is the infrastructure. Infrastructure. Have you ever thought of why some states in India are performing much better than others in certain areas? Why do Punjab, Haryana, and Himachal Pradesh prosper in agriculture and horticulture? Why are Maharashtra and Gujarat industrially more advanced than others? How come Kerala, popularly known as God's own country, has excelled in literacy, health care, and sanitation, and also attracts tourists in such large numbers? Why does Karnataka's information technology industry attracts world attention? It is all because these states have better infrastructure in the areas they excel than other states of India. Some have better irrigation facilities, others have better transportation facilities, or are located near ports, which makes raw materials required for various manufacturing industries easily accessible. Cities like Bengaluru in Karnataka attract many multinational companies because they provide world class communication facilities. All these support structures, which facilitate development of a country, constitute its infrastructure. How then does infrastructure facilitate development? What is infrastructure? Infrastructure provides supporting service in the main areas of industrial and agricultural production, domestic and foreign trade and commerce. These services include roads, railways, ports, airports, dams, power stations, oil and gas pipelines, telecommunication facilities. The country's educational system, including schools and colleges, health system, including hospitals, sanitary system, including clean drinking water facilities, and the monetary system, including banks, insurance, and other financial institutions. Some of these facilities have a direct impact on production of goods and services, while others give indirect support by building the social sector of the economy. Some divide infrastructure into two categories: economic and social. Infrastructure associated with energy, transportation, and communication are included in the former category, whereas those related to education, health, and housing are included in the latter. Relevance of infrastructure. Infrastructure is the support system on which depends the efficient working of a modern industrial economy. Modern agriculture also largely depends on it for speedy and large scale transport of seeds, pesticides, fertilizers, and produce using modern roadways, railways, and shipping facilities. In recent times, agriculture also depends on insurance and banking facilities because of its need to operate on a very large scale. Infrastructure contributes to economic development of a country both by increasing the productivity of the factories of production and improving the quality of life of its people. Inadequate infrastructure can have multiple adverse effects on health. Improvements in water supply and sanitation have a large impact by reducing morbidity, meaning proneness to fall ill from major waterborne diseases and reducing the severity of disease when it occurs. In addition to the obvious linkage between water and sanitation and health, the quality of transport and communication infrastructure can affect access to healthcare. Air pollution and safety hazards connected to the transportation also affect morbidity, particularly in densely populated areas. The state of infrastructure in India. Traditionally, the government has been solely responsible for developing the country's infrastructure, but it was found that the government's investment in infrastructure was inadequate. Today, the private sector by itself and also in joint partnership with the public sector has started playing a very important role in infrastructure development. A majority of our people live in rural areas. Despite so much technical progress in the world, rural women are still using biofuels such as crop residues, dung, and fuel wood to meet their energy requirement. They walk long distances to fetch fuel, water, and other basic needs. The census 2001 shows that in rural India only 56% households have an electricity connection and 43% still use kerosene. About 90% of the rural households use biofuels for cooking. Tap water availability is limited to only 24% rural household. About 76% of the population drinks water from open sources such as wells, tanks, ponds, lakes, rivers, canals, etc. Access to improved sanitation in rural areas was only 20%. Look at table 8.1 which shows the state of some infrastructure in India in comparison to a few other countries. Though it is widely understood that infrastructure is the foundation of development, India is yet to wake up to the call. India invests only 34% of its GDP on infrastructure, which is far below that of China and Indonesia. Some economists have projected that India will become the third biggest economy in the world a few decades from now. For that to happen, India will have to boost its infrastructure investment. In any country, as the income rises, the composition of infrastructure requirements changes significantly. For low income countries, basic infrastructure services like irrigation, transport, and power are more important. As economies mature and most of their basic consumption demands are met, the share of agriculture in the economy shrinks and more services related infrastructure is required. This is why the share of power and telecommunication infrastructure is greater in high income countries. Thus, development of infrastructure and economic development go hand in hand. Agriculture depends to a considerable extent on the adequate expansion and development of irrigation facilities. Industrial progress depends on the development of power and electricity generation, transport, and communications. Obviously, if proper attention is not paid to development of infrastructure, it is likely to act as a severe constraint on economic development. In this chapter, the focus will be on only two kinds of infrastructure, those associated with energy and health. Energy. What do we need? Why do we need energy? In what forms is it available? Energy is a critical aspect of the development process of a nation. It is, of course, essential for industries. Now it is used on a large scale in agriculture and related areas, like production and transportation of fertilizers, pesticides, and farm equipment. It is required in houses for cooking, household lighting, and heating. Can you think of producing a commodity or service without using energy? Sources of energy. There are commercial and non commercial sources of energy. Commercial sources are coal, petroleum, and electricity as they are bought and sold. Non commercial sources of energy are firewood, agricultural waste, and dried dung. These are non commercial as they are found in nature or forest. While commercial sources of energy are generally exhaustible with the exception of hydropower, non-commercial sources are generally renewable. More than 60% of Indian households depend on traditional sources of energy for meeting their regular cooking and heating needs. Non-conventional sources of energy. Both commercial and non-commercial sources of energy are known as conventional sources of energy. There are three other sources of energy which are commonly termed as non-conventional sources: solar energy, wind energy, and tidal power. Being a tropical country, India has almost unlimited potential for producing all three types of energy if some appropriate cost effective technologies that are already available are used. Even cheaper technologies can be developed. Consumption pattern of commercial energy. In India, commercial energy consumption makes up about 74% of the total energy consumed in India. This includes coal with the largest share of 54%, followed by oil at 32%, natural gas at 10%, and hydro energy at 2%. Non-commercial energy sources consisting of firewood, cow dung, and agricultural waste account for over 26% of the total energy consumption. The critical feature of India's energy sector and its linkages to the economy is the import dependence on crude and petroleum products, which is likely to grow rapidly in the near future. The sectoral pattern of consumption of commercial energy is given in Table 8.2. The transport sector was the largest consumer of commercial energy in 1953 to 54. However, there has been continuous fall in the share of the transport sector, while the shares of the household, agriculture, and industrial sector have been increasing. The share of oil and gas is the highest among all commercial energy consumption. With the rapid rate of economic growth, there has been a corresponding increase in the use of energy, power, or electricity. The most visible form of energy, which is often identified with progress in modern civilization, is power, commonly called electricity. It is a critical component of infrastructure that determines the economic development of a country. The growth rate of demand for power is generally higher than the GDP growth rate. Studies point out that in order to have 8% GDP growth per annum, power supply needs to grow around 12% annually. In India in 2016, thermal sources accounted for 67% of power generation capacity. Hydel power accounted for 14%, while nuclear power accounted for only 2%. India's energy policy encourages two energy sources, hydel and wind, as they do not rely on fossil fuel and hence avoid carbon emissions. Yet, this has not resulted in faster growth of electricity produced from these two sources. Atomic energy is an important source of electric power. It has economic advantages at present. At present, nuclear energy accounts for only 2% of the total energy consumption, against a global average of 13%. This is far too low. Hence, some scholars suggest to generate more electricity through atomic or nuclear sources, and yet a few others object about this from the viewpoint of environment and sustainable development. What do you think? making a difference. Thane city is acquiring a brand new image, an environment friendly makeover. Large scale use of solar energy, which was considered a somewhat far fetched concept, has brought in real benefits and result in cost and energy saving. It is being applied to heat, water, power, traffic lights, and advertising hoardings. And leading this unique experiment is the Thane Municipal Corporation. It has made compulsory for all new buildings in the city to install solar water heating system. Appeared in the column Making a Difference, Outlook, 1 August 2005. Some challenges in the power sector. Electricity generated by various power stations is not consumed entirely by ultimate consumers. A part of a, a part is consumed by power station auxiliaries. Also, while transmitting power, a portion is lost in transmission. What we get in our home, houses, offices, and factories is the net availability. Some of the challenges that India's power sector faces today are: first, India's installed capacity to generate electricity is not sufficient to feed an annual economic growth of 7 to 8%. In order to meet the growing demand for electricity, India's commercial energy supply needs to grow at about 7%. At present, India is able to add only 20,000 megawatt a year. Even the installed capacity is underutilized because plants are not run properly. Second, state electricity boards, which distribute electricity, incur losses which exceed rupees 500 billion. This is due to transmission and distribution losses, wrong pricing of electricity, and other inefficiencies. Some scholars also say that distribution of electricity to farmers is the main reason for the losses. Electricity is also stolen in different areas, which also adds to the woes of SEBs. Third, private sector power generators are yet to play their role in major way. Same is the case with foreign investors. Fourth, there is general public unrest due to high power tariffs and prolonged power cuts in different parts of the country. And fifth, thermal power plants, which are the mainstay of India's power sector, are facing shortage of raw material and coal supplies. Thus, continued economic development and population growth are driving the demand for energy faster than what India is producing currently. More public investment, better research and development efforts, exploration, technological innovation, and the use of renewable energy sources can ensure additional supply of electricity. Instead of investing in the power sector by adding to the installed capacity, the government has gone for privatization of the power sector and particularly distribution, and allowed much higher prices for electricity that have impacted certain sectors very badly. Do you think it is a right policy? Power distribution, the case of Delhi. Since independence, power management is the national in the national capital has changed hands four times. The Delhi State Electricity Board was set up in 1951. This was succeeded by the Delhi Electric Supply Undertaking in 1958. The Delhi Vidyut Board came into existence as SEB in February 1997. Now, the distribution of electricity vests with two leading private sector companies, Reliance Energy Limited, BSES Rajdhani Power Limited, and BSES Yamuna Power Limited, and Tata Power Limited, NDPL. They supply electricity to approximately 46 lakh customers in Delhi. The tariff structure and other regulatory issues are monitored by the Delhi Electricity Regulatory Commission, though it was expected that there will be greater improvement in power distribution and the consumer will benefit in a major way. Experience show unsatisfactory results. Saving energy, promoting the case of compact fluorescent lamps (CFL) and LED bulbs. According to the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, CFLs consume 80% less power as compared to ordinary bulbs. As put by a CFL manufacturer, Indo-Asian replacement of 1 million 100-watt bulbs with 20-watt CFLs can save 80 megawatt in power generation. This amounts to saving rupees 400 crore. These days, LED light emitting diode lamps are promoted throughout the country to save energy. The LED bulb uses one-tenth energy as an incandescent bulb and half as much as a CFL to produce the same amount of light. According to the Energy Efficiency Services Limited, the Ujala scheme that aims to replace incandescent bulbs with LEDs could save 5,900 megawatt in power generation. This translates to an annual saving of rupees 4,000 for an average family due to efficiency gains and lower replacement costs. Health. Health is not only absence of disease but also the ability to realize one's potential. It is a yardstick of one's well-being. Health is the holistic process related to the overall growth and development of the nation. Though the 20th century has seen a global transformation in human health unmatched in history, it may be difficult to define the health status of a nation in terms of a single set of measures. Generally, scholars assess people's health by taking into account indicators like infant mortality and maternal mortality rates, life expectancy, and nutrition levels, along with the incidence of communicable and non communicable diseases. Development of health infrastructure ensures a country of healthy manpower for the production of goods and services. In recent times, scholars argue that people are entitled to health care facilities. It is the responsibility of the government to ensure the right to healthy living. Health infrastructure includes hospitals, doctors, nurses, and other paramedical professionals, beds, equipment required in hospitals, and a well developed pharmaceutical industry. It is also true that mere presence of health infrastructure is not sufficient to have healthy people. The same should be accessible to all people. Since the initial stages of planned development, policymakers envisaged that no individual should fail to secure medical care, curative and preventive, because of the inability to pay for it. But are we able to achieve this vision? Before we discuss various health infrastructure, let us discuss the status of health in India. State of health infrastructure. The government has constitutional obligations to guide and regulate all health related issues such as medical education, adulteration of food, drugs and poisons, medical profession, vital statistics, mental deficiency and lunacy. The union government evolves broad policies and plans through the Central Council of Health and Family Welfare. It collects information and renders financial and technical assistance to state governments, union territories, and other bodies for the implementation of important health programs in the country. Over the years, India has built a vast health infrastructure and manpower at different levels. At the village level, a variety of hospitals, technically known as primary health centers, have been set up by the government. India also has a large number of hospitals run by a voluntary agency and the private sector. These hospitals are manned by professionals and paramedical professionals trained in medical pharmacy and nursing colleges. Since independence, there has been a significant expansion in the physical provisions of health services. During 1951 to 2017, the number of government hospitals and dispensaries together increased from 9,300 to 51,300 and hospital beds from 1.2 to 7.1 lakh. Also, nursing personnel increased from 0.18 to 28.8 lakh and allopathic doctors from 0.62 to 10.4 lakh. The expansion of health infrastructure has resulted in the eradication of smallpox, guinea worms, and the near eradication of polio and leprosy. Private sector health infrastructure. In recent times, while the public health sector has not been so successful in delivering the goods about which we will study more in the next section, private sector has grown by leaps and bounds. More than 70% of the hospitals in India are run by the private sector. They control nearly two-fifths of the beds available in the hospitals. Nearly 60% of dispensaries are run by the same private sector. They provide health care for 80% of outpatients and 46% of inpatients. In recent times, private sector has been playing a dominant role in medical education and training, medical technology and diagnostics, manufacture and sale of pharmaceuticals, hospital construction, and the provision of medical services. In 2001 to 2, there were more than 13 lakh medical enterprises employing 22 lakh people. More than 80% of them are single person owned and operated by one person, occasionally employing a hired worker. Scholars point out that the private sector in India has grown independently without any major regulation. Some private practitioners are not even registered doctors and are known as quacks. Since the 1990s, owing to liberalization measures, many non-resident Indians and industrial and pharmaceutical companies have set up state-of-the-art super specialty hospitals to attract India's rich and medical tourists. Do you think most people in India can get access to such super specialty hospitals? Why not? What could be done so that every person in India could access a decent quality healthcare? Health system in India. India's infrastructure and healthcare is made up of a three-tier system: primary, secondary, and tertiary. Primary healthcare includes education concerning preventing health problems and methods of identifying, preventing, and controlling them, promotion of food supply and proper nutrition, and adequate supply of water and basic sanitation. Maternal and child health care, immunization against major infectious diseases and injuries, promotion of mental health, and provision of essential drugs. Auxiliary nursing midwife is the first person who provides primary health care in rural areas. In order to provide primary health care, hospitals have been set up in villages and small towns, which are generally manned by a single doctor, a nurse, and a limited quantity of medicines. They are known as primary health centers (PHC), community health centers (CHC), and sub-centers. When the condition of a patient is not managed by PHCs, they are referred to secondary or tertiary hospitals. Hospitals which have better facilities for surgery, X-ray, electrocardiogram, ECG are called secondary healthcare institutions. They function both as primary healthcare provider and also provide better healthcare facilities. They are mostly located in district headquarters and in big towns. All those hospitals which have advanced level equipment and medicines and undertake all the complicated health problems which could not be managed by primary and secondary hospitals come under the tertiary sector. The tertiary sector also includes many premier institutes which not only impart quality medical education and conduct research but also provide specialized healthcare. Some of them are All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi, Postgraduate Institute, Chandigarh, Jawaharlal Nehru, Jawaharlal Institute of Postgraduate Medical Education and Research, Pondicherry, National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, Bangalore, and All India Institute of Hygiene and Public Health, Kolkata. Medical tourism, a great opportunity. You might have seen and heard on TV news or read in newspaper about foreigners flocking to India for surgeries, liver transplants, dental, and even cosmetic care. Why? Because our health services combine the latest medical technologies with qualified professionals and are cheaper for foreigners as compared to cost of similar healthcare services in their own countries. In 2016, as many as 2,01,000 foreigners visited India for medical treatment, and this figure is likely to increase by 15% each year. Experts predict that by 2020, India could earn more than 500 billion rupees through such medical tourism. Health infrastructure can be upgraded to attract more foreigners to India. Community and non-profit organization in healthcare. One of the important aspects of a good healthcare system is community participation. It functions with the idea that the people can be trained and involved in primary healthcare system. This method is already being used in some parts of our country. Seva in Ahmedabad and Accord in the Nilgiris would be example of some such NGOs working in India. Trade unions have built alternative healthcare services for their members and also to give low cost healthcare to people from nearby villages. The most well known and pioneering initiative in this regard has been Sahid Hospital, built in 1983 and sustained by the workers of CMSS, Chhattisgarh Mines Ramik Sangh, in Durg, Madhya Pradesh. A few attempts have also been made by rural organizations to build alternative healthcare initiatives. One example is in Thane, Maharashtra, where in the context of tribal people's organization, Kastakari Sangathan trains women health workers at the village level to treat simple illness at minimal cost. Indian systems of medicine. It includes six systems: Ayurveda, Yoga, Unani, Siddha, nat- na- Naturopathy, and Homeopathy. Ayush. At present, there are 3,943 Ayush hospitals and 27,700 dispensaries, and as many as 7.4 lakh registered practitioners in India. But little has been done to set up a framework to standardize education or to promote research. ISMS have huge potentials and can solve a large part of our healthcare problems because they are effective, safe, and inexpensive. Indicators of health infrastructure, a critical appraisal. As pointed out earlier, the health status of a country can be assessed through indicators such as infant mortality and maternal mortality rates, life expectancy, and nutrition levels, along with the incidence of communicable and non-communicable diseases. Some of the health indicators and India's position are given in Table 8.4. Scholars argue that there is greater scope for the role of government in the health sector. For instance, the table shows expenditure on health sector as 4.7% of the total GDP. This is abysmally low as compared to other countries, both developed and developing. One study points out that India has about 17% of the world's population, but it bears a frightening 20% of the global burden of diseases. GBD. GBD is an indicator used by experts to gauge the number of people dying prematurely due to a particular disease as well as the number of years spent by them in a state of disability owing to the disease. In India, more than half of GBD is accounted for by communicable diseases such as diarrhea, malaria, and tuberculosis. Every year, around 5 lakh children die of waterborne diseases. The danger of AIDS is also looming large. Malnutrition and inadequate supply of vaccines led to the death of 22.2 million children every year. At present, less than 20% of the population utilizes public health facilities. One study had pointed out that only 38% of the PSCs have the required number of doctors and only 30% of the PSCs have sufficient stock of medicine. Urban, rural, and poor rich divide. Though 70% of India's population lives in rural areas, only one-fifth of its hospitals, including private hospitals, are located in rural areas. Rural India has also about half the number of dispensaries. Out of about 6.3 lakh beds in government hospitals, roughly 30% are available in rural areas. Thus, people living in rural areas do not have sufficient medical infrastructure. This has led to differences in the health status of people. As far as hospitals are concerned, there are only 0.36 hospitals for every 1 lakh people in rural areas, while urban areas have 3.6 hospitals for the same number of people. The PSCs located in rural areas do not even offer X ray or blood testing facilities, which for a city dweller constitutes basic health care. States like Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Uttar Pradesh are relatively lagging behind in healthcare facilities. In rural areas, the percentage of people who have no access to proper healthcare facilities has increased over the last few years. Villages have no access to any specialized medical care like pediatrics, gynecology, anesthesia, and obstetrics. Even though 380 recognized medical colleges produce about 44,000 medical graduates every year, the shortage of doctors in rural areas persists. While one-fifth of these doctor graduates leave the country for better monetary prospects, many others opt for private hospitals which are mostly located in urban areas. The poorest 20% of Indians living in both urban and rural areas spend 12% of their income on healthcare, while the rich spend only 2%. What happens when the poor fall sick? Many have to sell their land or even pledge their children to afford treatment. Since government run hospitals do not provide sufficient facilities, the poor are driven to private hospitals which make them indebted forever, else they opt to die. Women's health. Women constitute about half of the total population in India. They suffer many disadvantages as compared to men in the areas of education, participation in economic activities, and healthcare. The deterioration in the child sex ratio in the country from 927 in 2001 to 914 in 2011 points to the growing incidence of female feticide. Close to 3 lakh girls aged below 15 years are not only married but have already born children at least once. More than 50% of married women in the age group of 15 to 49 years have anemia and nutritional anemia caused by iron deficiency, which has contributed to 19% of maternal deaths. Abortions are also a major cause of maternal morbidity and mortality in India. Health is a vital public good and a basic human right. All citizens can get better health facilities if public health services are decentralized. Success in the long term battle against diseases depends on education and efficient health infrastructure. It is therefore critical to create awareness on health and hygiene and provide efficient systems. The role of telecom and IT sectors cannot be neglected in the process. The effectiveness of healthcare programs also rest on primary healthcare. The ultimate goal should be to help people move towards a better quality of life. There is a sharp divide between urban and rural healthcare in India. If we continue to ignore this deepening divide, we run the risk of destabilizing the socio-economic fabric of our country. In order to provide basic health care to all, accessibility and affordability need to be integrated in our basic health infrastructure. Conclusion: infrastructure, both economic and social, is essential for the development of a country. As a support system, it directly influences all economic activities by increasing the productivity of factors of production and improving the quality of life. In the last 7 decades of independence, India has made considerable progress in building infrastructure. Nevertheless, its distribution is uneven. Many parts of rural India are yet to get good roads, telecommunication facilities, electricity, schools, and hospitals. As India moves towards modernization, the increase in demand for quality infrastructure, keeping in view their environmental impact, will have to be addressed. The reform policies, by providing various concessions and incentives, aim at attracting the private sector in general and foreign investors in particular, while assessing the two infrastructure, energy, and health. It is clear that there is scope for equal access to infrastructure for all. Recap: infrastructure is a network of physical facilities and public services, and with this social infrastructure is equally important to support it. It is an important base for economic development of the country. Infrastructure needs to be upgraded from time to time to maintain high economic growth rate. Better infrastructure facilities have attracted more foreign investment and tourists to India recently. It is important to develop rural infrastructural facilities. Public and private partnership is required to bring in huge funds for infrastructural development. Energy is very vital for rapid economic growth. There is a big gap between consumer demand and supply of electricity in India. Non-conventional sources of energy can be of great support to meet shortage of energy. The power sector is facing a number of problems at generation, transmission, and distribution levels. Health is a yardstick of human well-being, physical as well as mental. There has been significant expansion in physical provisions of health services and improvements in health indicators since independence. Public health systems and facilities are not sufficient for the bulk of the population. There is a wide gap between rural urban areas and between poor and rich in utilizing healthcare facilities. Women's health across the country has become a matter of great concern, with reports of increasing cases of female foeticide and mortality. Regulated private sector health services can improve the situation, and at the same time, NGOs and community participation are very important in providing healthcare facilities and spreading health awareness. Natural systems of medicine have to be explored and used to support public health. There is a great scope of advancement of medical tourism in India. तो ये है इस चैप्टर का एक्सरसाइज, और इसी के साथ हमारा ये चैप्टर कंप्लीट होता है। तो अगर आप चैनल पर नए हैं तो चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कर दीजिए और नोटिफिकेशन आइकन पर क्लिक कर दीजिए ताकि आप डेली लाइव क्लास ज्वाइन कर सकें। और अगर आपको वीडियो अच्छा लगे तो लाइक कर दीजिए, साथ ही अपने दोस्तों के साथ शेयर कीजिए ताकि उन्हें भी हेल्प हो। तो हमारा ये सेशन यहीं तक था। थैंक यू, थैंक्स फॉर ज्वाइनिंग।